to The Sound of Design
with Mark
and Dan. And we are extremely thankful that you guys have joined us. We are very, very excited for today's episode. I figure today would be a great time to talk about one of the most iconic speaker brands that we've had. Really, we should just call them an audio brand. I think that's probably more fair. To call them an audio brand. And that is the one and only Sonos.
Woo!
There it is. For folks who are well initiated, they're going to know a lot about Sonos, and they're going to have all sorts of preconceived notions. A lot of folks have heard about them, and we figured this is probably as good an opportunity to kind of go through some of their lineup. We'll talk a little bit about some of the different speakers that they have, some of the different parts, some of the different pieces, how they integrate, how they work together, some of their limitations, things like that. So yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
I agree. I've been selling Sonos for, since 2009. And I used to carry a pre-set up Sonos kit in my car when I would go to people's homes. I had a Sonos bridge.
Oh, that's awesome.
So all you had to do is connect it to the network, because in the past it just connected to the bridge. You had to have it.
Right.
And I had a Play 5 and a Play 3, and I would just take it in doing a consult, or just run out to my car and be like, hey, let me go get this. Let me show you how it works. And they'd be like, all right, I want 8 rooms. Here you go. Like, it was awesome.
Well, and it's funny you mentioned that. We'll kind of start a little bit with some of their history, which is that they had originally that controller, right?
Yep.
That was kind of their main brain, and it was a pretty traditionally designed distributed audio system, right? So, speakers throughout the house, and, everything's wired back to a main closet, that kind of an idea. And, for them to be able to make that shift, was just pure genius. And their focus on, quite honestly, sound quality, right, has been pretty incredible for a time when, a lot of people had moved to MP3s, Napster, right? You're thinking about folks who have really kind of destroyed their audio quality, and here's a company who decides, no, we're going to take you down that road again. We're going to make really good sounding stuff and make it really easy to use and things like that. So they're really a very, very cool brand, and we do a ton of their stuff. So
yeah, and the fact that from time to time they'll just send you an update and make your stuff sound even better,
is pretty amazing.
You can't do that with most other stuff.
This is
really can't.
Yep. Like, once you're in and you're done, going back to our mechanical versus digital product, like the fact that it's a digitally based product, right? It's pretty. It's one of those things that they've done really well. So. Maybe by way of introduction, Mark, tell us a little bit about Sonos for those who aren't familiar.
Sure.
About what it is that they do, just on a real high level, and then we'll deep dive from there.
Sure. So Sonos, when they started, they created a system that would allow folks to play music around the house from a digital music source, whether that was your own music library or... really, that's where to start, was digital music library. There really wasn't a lot of streaming music outside of Pandora, which was a service they added pretty early on. But they had an amp, and they had a Connect, which is what it was called, and then they had eventually added a Play 5. So what that allowed you to do was hook up a set of speakers using their amp, hooking up a system to Sonos using the Connect, or getting that sound wirelessly to another room using the Play 5 speaker. And that was it. And then they had a little remote control that had a screen on it. It was pretty cool. It was like a Zune, if you remember the Zune back in the day.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was pretty sweet. We used to have it on demo, and it was great. We loved it. And then as they evolved, it became more about the wireless speakers. Well, not everybody wanted this giant, bookshelf-sized speaker. So they came out with the Play 3, which, RIP, I actually love that speaker.
I agree with you.
I have one sitting in the room behind me. It's not even plugged in. And then the 5 got an upgrade and so on. And the biggest part was, when they came out with the Soundbar, which I don't want to get too far into it, but essentially it became the whole home music option for folks that, wanted to be able to play any of the music on earth in any room.
Yep.
Using an app on your phone. They did do away with the controller, unfortunately. But as they progressed, it's now probably our best-selling audio component outside of the premium space. And I'm not saying it's not a premium product, but because it really is. But outside of a premium component audio system, it's our number one selling piece.
Yep, absolutely. And I'm glad that you said that it is a premium product, because I think it is kind of like marijuana. It's a gateway drug. You get into it and it just takes you down that rabbit trail. So I mean it in the best way possible. Sure. If you're not used to having good sounding speakers, if you're kind of new to that space and you're not really sure, Sonos is one of those places a lot of folks start, and that'll kind of get you bit by the audio bug, and then you can kind of go deeper and deeper into it. So I apologize for my marijuana reference, but
you're good, man. I mean, I'm going to go back to that reference because we always used to joke about it, because it is addicting. It is everyone that you sold, you would always follow up with those clients because you knew they were going to buy more, myself included. When I started, I bought a open box Play 5 and a bridge that we had at one of our stores here locally. Took it home to my 3-bedroom apartment. And I'm like telling my wife, I'm like, Hallie, this is awesome. Like, you have got to try this. And she's like, okay, like, well, that's fine. You got a good deal on it. I'm like, but, we got to carry the speaker room to room. The original Play 5 had a handle on it, so you could carry it from room to room. You just have to unplug it and then plug it back in, wait like 45 seconds to a minute, it would reconnect. And after a week, she's like, I want to play music in here and not take this out of there. And I'm like, I told you, like, you're going to want more of this. And they had just released the Play 5, and we got like an accommodation or something on it. So we bought Play 3. They just brought the Play, so we bought a Play 3, and that became our bedroom. And then I bought a Kinect that went in my theater in our second bedroom in our apartment that we owned at the time. So within 2 months, I had 4 zones because I got one for my kitchen as well. So, which was open to the living room. It was an apartment, Yep. So it's definitely a drug, so to speak, for the audio bug, or to get you that audio bug.
Yep. Well, and I think the other thing that should be called out is a little bit about their technology, and this is going to apply to everything that they do. And I think this is probably the most important, is that it's a network-based product, right? Yep. It's a Wi-Fi enabled speaker. And for folks who are not technical, there's a lot of similarities in wireless protocols, but there's some really important differences in wireless protocols. And Wi-Fi can go through walls, windows, and doors in the average home or in a small apartment or things along those lines. And so your connectivity, right, your broadcast range is a lot greater. So you think about this, like, you can have Wi-Fi cover a whole house. Bluetooth doesn't do that. Like, I'm sorry, but and then you also have to consider that Wi-Fi enables multiple devices to be connected to the same network. So said another way, you can have 3 or 4 or 5 different rooms all playing at the exact same time, whereas with a Bluetooth speaker at the time, it was 1-to-1. You were stuck. If I buy a nice Bluetooth speaker, and we sold some great ones. B&W had a really nice little one, and there was a couple others that right?
Man, what was that one that we carried? Dang, I'm trying to think. Go ahead. I'll think of it. Go ahead.
Anyway, but my point is, like, that's great for one room, right? But if I want to go to that second room, I really want to get that distributed audio concept. They picked up on the wireless thing and just kind of went full bore with it. And rightfully so. I think a lot of their success is due to the fact that they had, the right idea at the right time. But also, probably the most important is that they executed it right. So the speakers actually sound very good. So from an audio perspective, they're pretty stellar. The amplifiers, right? Very, very good. The app, very reliable. It wasn't difficult to set up. It was very easy, and still is, quite honestly, to this day. easy to set up and to go through a system. They do a lot of stuff automatically for you. And so you take that combo, right, of really well made, really good sounding, like it was just, it had, and I'm sure it wasn't easy for them to do that, but in the end, that's what they were able to accomplish. And so I give them a lot of credit for doing something that not a lot of other brands were able to do.
Agreed. Yeah, and then when they hit the home theater space, like, I don't mean to get so excited, but that was a game changer as well, because now, you could put, it was really, truly one of the first truly wireless surround sound systems that we carried at the beginning of the Play Bar. And that thing was, I have one in the closet behind me, but it was not the prettiest speaker, but it had, 9 different drivers across the whole front of it. And it was, again, a literal game changer when it even came to soundbars, because soundbars back then were Bose, a TV manufactured soundbar, Samsung, Sony, LG, or Sonos when they launched it.
That's right.
And you look at a company like Bose, no disparaging here, look at their product lineup now. The Lifestyle 650 just got discontinued like 6 months ago. They don't make a surround sound system anymore that's hardwired. Everything is wireless, even with Bose.
Yep.
Because of what Sonos did to the soundbar market.
And I think in a lot of people's minds too, we see technology, we see wireless, and those two things go together. So you have this immediate assumption. You walk into a store and you say, I want a wireless solution. I don't want to have all these cords and wires and things like that. So I do want to call out that they are still a powered speaker or an active speaker. They do require a power cable, so it's not truly wireless. So that just with a couple of exceptions, let's just say you still need to plug it in. But that being said, really, really fantastic lineup, really fantastic company. They do good work, and just want to call out a few of the specifics. So today, if you were just looking for a couple of speakers, okay, and let's just say you want to do a stereo pair in a living room, in a kitchen, in a bedroom, in a dining room, something like that, what of their speaker lineup would you go to, and why?
Sure. So if you're just talking about getting some good music in a space, Sonos has a couple of different ways that they kind of break down their products. So they have what they're going to call a portable speaker, meaning something that has a battery built into it. There are 2 options there. They have the theater options, which are soundbars and subs, but in the middle they have their just what they call speaker or wireless speaker arrangement. So you have an Aero 100, an Aero 300, and the Sonos 5. Just different performance levels based on the functionality that you're looking for and the space that you're trying to cover. So if we're talking a small office, I've seen it done in like lounges, things like that. A couple of Aero 100s would do just fine. And when I say a couple, you could do one because it's a self-sufficient speaker inside of itself.
Right.
But you can actually buy 2, plug them in on each side of your room, and pair them together in the app as a stereo pair. So it's now going to separate and do truly left and right and create a soundstage for you. The Aero 300 is a step up from there.
Yep.
More drivers on the front. Additional drivers at the rear that actually point up and around the space to, I know we talked about spatial audio a few weeks ago.
Yep.
It gives you the ability to be more immersive in that space. So 2 of those would just give you a better experience. And then you have the 5, which is the largest speaker with a built-in woofer. It is not set up for spatial audio, but it's what I would consider as that diehard stereo listener that wants the best stereo listening experience on a wireless speaker. A pair of those is going to be the best solution.
Yep, absolutely. And I'm glad that you kind of qualified the Play 5 that way, because we don't often think of them as competing in kind of that mid-tier bookshelf category. But when you think about, the cost and the price points, okay, let's say that you find a nice integrated amp, entry-level Denon, like a, DRA 800 or something similar to that, right? $500-600. You get yourself a pair of bookshelf speakers, $500-600. You're in that $1,000 to $1,200 kind of a price category. And if you were to compare that to 2-Play 5s, I would argue that, you would have the same level of performance. Now, you may like this brand or that brand. You may like this or that. All right, so let's take the subjectivity out of it. But from a class perspective, 2-Play 5s are phenomenal.
They're good.
They're pretty dang good. Yeah. And if you set them up as a stereo pair, to your point, you're going to get, some pretty good imaging, and you'll get, drums on the right and vocals in the center and, guitars to the left, and they'll do all the things. So I definitely think they represent a fantastic option. And I like their Aero 100s just as kind of like secondary spaces. You sort of called it out like a smaller office. I have no issue saying, if I just want to have something, maybe to just get started, see how you like it. I mean, that's not an expensive speaker, so if you've got, a small office where I want to have some background music while I work and really just, I don't want to have a huge financial commitment. I mean, that thing is fantastic. They make great gifts, phenomenal gifts.
Yep.
I hate to say it, but they really do. So
my brother and mom have it at their houses already. So, and the other thing, I did bypass this, but the subwoofer that I mentioned as part of the home theater, you can bring that into any of those stereo pairs and give yourself even more bass to give you that 2.1 experience over the 2.0 experience. And they actually have 2 subs now. I didn't mention the mini sub, but I know we really didn't get there yet.
Yeah, well, and that's fine. I mean, we might as well transition into it, because I'll tell you the story. I'm in one of the demo rooms, and the Sonos rep comes in and he sets up a pair of Play 5s, and at the time I think it was the Sub Gen 2. And we listened to a track by Incubus, and I will never forget, Aqueous Transmission. One of my favorite songs. It's really an amazing song. It has kind of this Asian feel to it. There's some great flutes. There's a bunch of traditional Chinese and Japanese instruments, and there's a drum and all this. And man, I could not believe how good it sounded with that sub. I mean, I'm sitting there listening to this, in a studio going, wow, this is very impressive. And to build that up with a wired system, to get to that same level of performance, quite honestly, I think you'll get, dollar for dollar. You've got some very, very staunch competition, but you got to do a lot more work to get there. And I think that's really the big difference. You will probably get a little bit of a better result. Admittedly, you can tune that sound a little bit more to the way that you like it. But again, going back to it, for a plug and play solution, those things are awesome.
Yep. Yeah, it's that sub. I mean, even to this day, you and I have sold $7,000-8,000 a piece subwoofers, multiples and spaces, and I'm not saying that an $800 Sonos sub is going to beat a number 25 from Rel. I'm not saying that, so don't think I'm crazy. But for $800, force canceling. What's the next price point that has 2 drivers that aim at each other and cancel out vibrations?
Yeah,
1,500, 2,000. So it's really hard to beat at that price point. For what it does.
And it's got a lot of power too. And I'm glad you called out the Isobaric design, because it means that you don't have a rattle. So they're extremely flexible in terms of their installation. You don't have a lot of those issues where you do with a traditional subwoofer, where it's down firing, for example, and you've got hardwood floors, and all of a sudden, this thing is bouncing all over the place, and the missus comes in and looks at you and says, "What did you put in my house?" Right?
Yep.
I'm just saying, none of those things happen because of that force canceling design. right? You have one subwoofer on one side, you have a second on the other, and again, they go in opposite phase to each other. So it's a really, really smart, really well executed sub. And their Sub Mini does a great job too.
It does.
I was pleasantly surprised when I heard that, quite honestly. It doesn't do, I think, some of that really low stuff. There is some physics limitations to smaller sizes and subwoofers. You know, that becomes instantly apparent. But for what it is, right, you have to admit they've done a very nice job with it.
I agree. I was actually blown away, especially for its size, because it's like a wastebasket in your office, you know.
Yeah.
And it packs a punch.
Yep. Absolutely.
And you know, we keep talking about the sub, but the Soundbars. You know, I guess we can kind of transition into that. But full disclosure, I own a Sonos Arc and a sub.
Yep.
And it's literally my primary bedroom system.
Yep.
Used to have a pair of Bowers and Wilkins speakers with a Bowers center channel and some wireless rear kits with a wireless rear speaker kit that I used. And while my wife loves technology, she works in the tech field too. It got to a point where it was like, is this really what we need in here aesthetically? You know.
Yep.
And really, she would have let me keep it because she's awesome. But at the end of the day, we needed to take away those and put them in a different space. You know, we needed the space in our bedroom. So it's the Sonos Arc is, I'm gonna say, one of the best soundbars out there.
Yep.
Period. I mean, not dissing the Sennheisers and the Bowers and Wilkins and all that, but again, for the functionality, it's hard to beat.
Yeah, and let's they have kind of 3 different levels of soundbars that are really fantastic. And so you mentioned the Arc, which is kind of their flagship, and that's their top line. Then you've got a mid-tier, which is called the Beam, and then they just released the Sonos Ray, which is a little bit of a step down from that. And the thing I like about it, I mean, you say best, and, you know, that needs, I think, to be qualified, because I don't disagree with you, right?
Yep.
The question is, and I'm going to use a Top Gear reference. If you're not familiar, it's this UK show, car review show. And those guys talked about the worst car ever made being some really fancy Lexus. And the reason is it wasn't fast, and it wasn't sporty, and it wasn't this, and it wasn't that. And even though it costs a lot of money and all these other things, and they went on and on and on, because the point was that they missed the mark. That's actually what the issue was, right? And and I think when you talk about what makes a good soundbar, well, what is a soundbar? It's easy. That's the whole point. It's simple. I plug it in, I connect it, I walk away, kind of a thing. And in that sense, even though there are probably some soundbars that could maybe have better frequency response, or maybe a better this or a better, I get that. But as an all around, when you really think about, well, what was the point? Well, simplicity, ease of use. I just want to plug it in and know that it's going to work. I don't know of another soundbar that I could put in my grandma's house and not expect to get phone calls.
Yep.
Even including some of the TV manufactured soundbars. It's kind of amazing, to be honest.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I had, prior to moving into our house, in our last apartment, I had a Samsung TV, or Samsung, it was a Samsung TV Plasma.
Yep.
In our bedroom, and it had played musical TVs. That's how it got there. And I'm like, hey, I need a better sound solution. And it was, Black Friday, I'll buy this Samsung 500 series soundbar with the wireless rear speakers because, I've got to go all out, right? And even with Arc, then, I mean, this is probably 4 or 5, oh gosh, I've been in this house 5 years, 6 or 7 years ago. it was magic, is what we used. We used to sell Arc, the ARC connection, which is how these connect, as magic, because it works sometimes, and then there are other times it's just like doesn't work at all. You don't know what's going on. Plug it back in, do whatever, and then you just give up. The next day it works. Everything's perfect again. Yep. They've really perfected that technology. I'm not saying you should live by it, but Sonos especially rarely have any issues. It's usually the television that's causing the issues because it's an older TV.
Yep. Yeah, and I'm glad you called out ARC because audio return channel, HDMI port, also known, or you'll see, I shouldn't say also known, eARC as well. And just for the the common person listening that is not familiar with that technology, it allows the TV, when you turn it on, to send a power on command to the soundbar. Okay, and in this case, where we're going next, the Sonos Amp. And so they have one of those connections as well. So you talk about what does that mean? Well, it means that I don't have to have another remote when I buy this soundbar. It means I don't have to turn it on and adjust the volume with some secondary remote. I don't have to switch inputs. I don't have to worry about what connection is plugged into what. Okay, it's literally plug the HDMI into my television on the ARC port. Make sure I do the same thing on the soundbar, and then that's it. It's set up to automatically talk to each other. And to your point, again, going back to the TV soundbars, if I have a Sony soundbar and I have a Samsung television, the odds of them playing nicely together is actually very low, right? If I have a receiver, for example, and a television, and I use the ARC, sometimes it works well, sometimes it doesn't. It's kind of hit or miss as an overall technology. But what Sonos has done is they did their due diligence to make sure that no matter what you buy, you plug it in and it's going to work.
Yep.
So I don't know what I wish that, honestly, whatever Sonos does, I wish they would tell the other manufacturers, because it's amazing to me that they can do it, but nobody else seems to know how to do it. Yep. So
it blows my mind, man. I mean, there would be so many systems that I've designed back in the day, and you'd just be like, "Oh, I can't run an optical," because we'd always run an optical, right? Like, run an optical cable because it's a backup. But there would be those jobs you get out there and you can't do it, and you're going to have to rely on ARC for some reason.
Yep.
And it was just, you were praying, oh, please, work. Or you were selling them an Apple TV or some other device to, circumvent the streaming features of the TV that they had to keep,
Yep. Trying to find some other way to do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or you do a traditional control system, right? You do a Savant or a Control 4 or something along those lines. And obviously, there's, if there's no budget restriction, then yeah, we could do that for everybody. But the truth is that when there is a budget restriction, that sometimes can be, pricing folks out. So all of a sudden, ARC becomes your next go-to. And I think that was a really good, it's a really good solution. It's not perfect, like we've said, but I think more and more manufacturers are going to continue to go that direction. And my only concern, and I know I'm getting on a little bit of a tangent, but my only concern with that is I don't know that keeping those things automatic is really a good idea, in the sense that there's no way to adjust any other settings. So when you run into an issue, your options are unplug it, plug it back in, hope and pray, right? Turn the commands on and off, right? And that's about it. Like, you can't go in and say, hey, we need to turn off this, we need to turn this on, we need another power command, or we need a delay, or we need none of that stuff exists. And so I still think there's a large market of projects where you're going to go to a control system, even for just basic remote control functionality, because if ARC doesn't automatically do its thing, you have to have some sort of a way to solve for that. But I think as more and more manufacturers, if they can do it right, if it's well executed, I have no issue with it. So,
agreed.
Yeah. So let's move on to the amp and the port, because we teased the amp a little bit earlier. Can you tell me about those two specifically? Because they're some of my favorite, honestly, my favorite parts of the Sonos landscape.
Yep. And funny you said landscape, because we can get to that in a second. So imagine this, right? You've got speakers that you love the sound of, whether they're bookshelf speakers or, and most of the time it's an outdoor speaker of some sort, right?
Yep.
But you have those and you want to get Sonos to work with them. Enter the Sonos amp, formerly Connect amp. formerly ZP100. It is the Sonos amp is 125 watt per channel, 2-channel stereo amplifier with Sonos built into the system. So it natively connects to the Sonos app. You connect it via speaker wire to those speakers, and now, boom, you've got Sonos music playing through those speakers. Outdoor speakers are what we use it for a lot. You don't see a lot of people using bookshelf speakers as much as I would. I mean, my mom does at her house, but it does because I designed it, right?
Well
most
done,
of the time, most of the time, it's usually a pair of outdoor speakers, Bowers and Wilkins, DefTech, something like that. But recently, last week we had Sonance on, and there's a 6-channel option package that we sell with them that has 6 landscape speakers and a sub powered off of the Sonos amp for landscape audio. Now, it's not going to cover an Olympic-sized swimming pool, but if you've got a small patio or a smaller pool, it's really, really awesome, and it's pretty inexpensive compared to the next tier up from them. So, so that's the Sonos amp.
I love it. Well, and honestly, so I said it's my favorite. It's a fantastic Swiss Army knife of a device, and so I'll just give you a couple of things that are, in my opinion, incredibly important as a designer. So the first one is that it's about 9 by 9 inches, and I want to say maybe like 2.5 tall, something like that. So from a physical standpoint, it's actually very small. Most amplifiers are built into an AV receiver. Well, that's a rack piece of gear. That's 20 inches wide by 18 to 20 inches deep by 8 inches tall. So, you talk about looking at things from a design perspective. You say, I don't want to have this big, ugly box, right? That's half the reason why we throw them into these other rooms. We put them in a rack. We put it in a cabinet. We put it in a... Well, you take a look at a Sonos amp, and we've been doing a ton of these recently. You can run speaker wire and an in-wall or in-ceiling pair of speakers or a passive soundbar, and that's actually the one is probably my favorite, quite frankly. You can run those right behind the television. You put in this low-voltage back box, and the Sonos amp can live behind the TV. And so now you've got this ability to hide an amplifier, and you can get whatever speaker you want, to your point, right? Maybe I do want bookshelves. Maybe I want a set of towers. Maybe I want some electrostats. True story. I had a guy. Okay? And, oh, man, it's going to be... All right, so electrostatic speakers from Martin Logan, okay, they make phenomenal, and they're not inexpensive, by the way, but they sound fantastic, and this guy really, really, really wanted some electrostatic speakers, but he already had Sonos. He loves Sonos, and he said, listen, man, I want this ease and compatibility. And so we get out to the house and we're looking at it and we go through the design, and you know what? At the end of the day, we had this beautiful wall that was left of the fireplace, and we put an electrostatic speaker on one side and the same thing on the other. The wires went behind the television, so you didn't see any cords, you didn't see any wires, and we were able to get the Sonos amp behind the TV. So it really did look like these floating speakers, floating television, and we had all of the integration with the Sonos system. And the TV was super easy to operate. He did nothing but stream. So, he turns on the TV, amp turns on, speakers play fantastically. And could I have recommended a nicer amplifier and all this other kind of stuff? Sure. I probably could have. But in the end, it was actually the right move. And it sounded pretty dang good.
Yep.
It sounded great. So I really do think it's probably one of my favorite pieces. But let's say that you had a receiver. Let's say you've got an Atmos surround sound room, like a theater room or a bonus room or something, but you want to be able to play music up there. Mark, what piece would I use for that?
Well, Dan, you would utilize the Sonos I'm kidding. Sonos Port.
Sonos Port.
Formerly the Sonos Connect. And that essentially is the same device as the Sonos Amp, just minus the amplification part. So you can connect it via analog or digital coax to any amplifier that you want, whether that's a surround sound or an existing 2-channel integrated or 2-channel amp, and that allows you to utilize your amplifier and speakers with that system. The other difference between the port and the amp is the amp does have that HDMI connection like the soundbar. So when we were talking about playing TV sound, you can connect TV HDMI to that. The port does not have that. It is strictly designed as a audio device, for music and for Sonos audio, and we'll get to that in a second. And it also has an input, an analog input, which the Sonos Amp does too, allowing you to plug in another audio source like a turntable or CD player or something else to distribute that throughout the Sonos system, which is something we've kind of skipped over and we'll talk about at some point here. But that's what the port essentially is designed for.
Well, and I'm glad that you corrected me, because it really isn't just music. You know, yep. You are correct. I like to think about them in a music context, probably because I use them for distributed audio so much. Yep. If I have a house we go out to and they already have a traditional in-wall, in-ceiling speakers, have already, volume controls on the wall, we're already, have an existing system we want to build some new technology on top of, the Sonos Port becomes a really nice solution. You can get one of those to represent each room or zone, depending on how you break it out in the home. And so in conjunction with a distributed audio amplifier, 8-zone amp or a 16-channel amp or a 4-channel amp or something like that, you've got the Sonos brain power, so to speak, to be able to feed into that system. So, and you mentioned that you could connect a turntable. So could you tell me maybe the two ways that you connect turntables into the Sonos ecosystem?
Sure. So the most common way that we've done it for the past several years is utilizing an input on a Sonos device, whether that be the port, the amp, or a 5. The Sonos 5 actually has an analog input on the back of it.
Yep.
So you could connect a CD player or turntable into this unit. If it's a turntable, it does require a outboard phono stage in between your turntable and Sonos if your turntable doesn't have it built in already.
Yep, I was gonna say.
So, but most of the time, folks have a turntable that have a phono preamp built in, so you would connect from your turntable into the back of the port on the audio input, and that would allow you to then, it would show up on the Sonos app as a line in. It doesn't show up until you plug something in.
Yep.
You name it turntable, and boom, you're playing your music. You start your turntable. You can then play that to any Sonos device, whether that be the soundbar or one of their speakers. Recently, this is something that I learned just a few weeks ago, honestly, because things change so much. We actually carry a few options that wirelessly connect to the Sonos network. It is not made by Sonos. The one that I actually saw and integrated was Victrola.
Yep.
And it was like a $700 turntable. So it's not, it's not the $200 Audio Technica.
Right.
But if you don't want the hassle of having to have a port or spend $450 on a port when you don't need it, you buy this unit and it shows up as a wireless source into your Sonos ecosystem. So I was actually really excited about it. Like, I was tempted to purchase one to try it out myself. I didn't do that, but
that's fair.
I might do it at some point. We'll see. I haven't got to listen to records a lot recently, so I've kind of wanted to try to get back into it. So, well,
and I think there's something to be said for, and speaking as audio engineer and tech guy, I'm thinking about a turntable as that fully mechanical, uncompressed audio process, right? And so there's a part of me that says, man, why are you hooking that up to a wireless digital system? Like, that doesn't make any sense, in it from a technology perspective. And yet at the same time, if it gets you listening to music and it enables you to enjoy your music and have that connection with an artist or with a song that you love and to have a good time with family and friends, then who cares, man? Like, what are we arguing about? I mean, the point of technology is for you to do the thing, right? It's a tool. It gets you from A to B. Like, that's what we care about. So if that's your ecosystem is Sonos and you want to have a turntable, then go for it, man. And don't think twice about it. Just make sure it works. Make sure you have a phono stage. Make sure that phono preamp is built in, or get the Victrola and rock. Like, have a great time.
Yep. And Dan and I, we probably should preface this, like, you and I both own nice turntables on our main system. You know what I mean? So
yes,
we're not here to tell you that we're throwing it all out today and getting Sonos, and that hopefully that's not an overarching thing. It's all about what it does and the price point that it's at, right?
Yep.
So don't want it to overshadow the fact that it is, there are better sounding options, and especially when it comes to turntables. If you're the stereo person, Sonos is probably an accessory, an auxiliary to your system. It's not, you're not running your $1,500 Project turntable or your Macintosh MT5 through it. You're just not.
Yep. Well, and I'll tell you a story. I had a guy who works in the music industry as a client, and we built a listening room, okay? And we had a really cool Yamaha integrated amplifier and a fantastic Rega turntable, and we did beautiful KEF tower speakers and, KF92 subwoofer. I mean, everything was all analog. And we ended up using a Sonos port as one of the options, right? And I say this to say, you can have your cake and eat it too. Like, that's the whole point. When you get into this room, and we did some cool things with like acoustic panels and stuff like that, but when you get in there, the whole point is to listen to music, right? And so if I want to have that ability, then I should be able to flip a switch and do the thing, right? And that's the thing I think I most appreciate about Sonos as an ecosystem and as a whole brand, as a company, as an ethos. They really understand that it's about getting you to your music, and don't let the technology get in the way. And I can't agree with that anymore. As much as I understand there's parts and pieces, they do certain things. At the end of the day, they really do understand. Let's get you back to the music. Let's get you to your TV. Let's get you to your movies. Let's get you into what makes what sense for you. Mm-hmm. So they do one other category that I want to touch on real briefly. What if I wanted to take my music around? Maybe be a little bit more portable than permanently installed. What would I look at from Sonos?
Sure. So they have two options. You have the Move, or Move 2 is actually the new one, and the Roam, or Roam SL. I should say that there are certain models that will have an SL at the end of them. Those signify models that do not have any type of voice control capabilities. Any of the models that, like the Arc, the Beam, all of those are going to have a couple of voice assistance options that you can turn on or off, whether you're an Amazon or Google person, or if you're not either of those but you want the voice. Sonos actually has their own, which is, if you can read into it, it's all about privacy. If you're really concerned about it, it's literally just to turn your music on and off, and it still gives you that Amazon or Google functionality without giving your information to them, so to speak. But anyway, back to the speaker. So the Move and the Roam. So the Roam is it's the smallest speaker in their lineup. It's about the size of like a a Liquid Death, 12-ounce can that you'd get at the gas station. I was going to say tall boy, but whatever. It's about that size, and it is a battery-powered wireless speaker from Sonos, but it has the ability to, you flip a button on the back, turn it to Bluetooth mode, and it's now a Bluetooth speaker. So I love my Sonos sound. I bought one of these the day they launched. I carry it with me. It's in my truck right now. But I used to have it in my backpack coming into work every day, playing my theme song for the day. That was kind of one of my things I like to do.
Nice.
But that's it. Like, you want to go portable.
Time out.
Yep.
I need to know what that theme song is. Tell me
it was Stone Cold Steve Austin's theme music from WWE, is whatever it was. Usually, or some wrestling theme, because we were ridiculous back then.
Okay, continue.
I think if I did that now, the kids that some of the kids that are there would be like, "What is this?" But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Awesome.
It's a portable speaker designed to be as portable as like some of the other Bluetooth speakers out there. But cool, I bring it home. It connects to my Wi-Fi, and I've got a wireless Sonos speaker. The Move is a step up from that. It's about the size of the Era 300. I actually compare it to the old Play 3.
It's very close.
As far as performance, it's roughly that size, except it's just vertical. It is a rechargeable. It's got a rechargeable battery. Both of them do. The Roam does not come with a charging dock. You can buy one. The Move 2 has a charging dock that it sits on, and it's got this nifty little handle. So, like, mine are plugged into, because I live in a townhome, I can't wire speakers outside. I can, I just haven't done it yet. It's got a handle. I lift it up. One name is Patio, so I just pick it up and I walk out to my back porch when I'm grilling. I have two of them. So I can take one. Hallie uses the other one out front, so it's named Front Porch. But we know that we could pair them together. But again, if I like that better sound, I can take one of them out with me, switch it to Bluetooth mode, and boom. Now I've got a Bluetooth speaker that's better sounding, that's got that Sonos iconic sound that I like. But I'm not just tethered to my Wi-Fi.
Yeah, and I think that's probably my favorite use case for them, is not just around the house, but really if I want to go to the beach, I want to go on vacation. We used to do this thing where we'd go to the beach for a week and, do a nice family vacation. And anytime you go to a vacation rental, the audio video equipment they put in there is just the absolute bottom of the barrel, right? And I get it. Yep. It's a rental. I don't go there expecting to have, a great AV system. I'm there for the beach. I'm there, but I still want to enjoy some music if the kids are swimming in the pool or whatever it is. And so it is, small enough and portable enough that we can do that. And I think that's one of the things that they've really touched on is, it just becomes very versatile. That's really kind of the thing I think they've really hit on there. It's use it how you want it. And that's so key. So. Yep.
And, I use them quite a bit. It's even during Halloween, not this year, last year, I took them out on my front porch and I put them underneath I've got some just decorative tables that are out there next to the chairs we have. And I hid them under there, and I just played creepy music for when kids walked up. And it was awesome because I didn't have to plug them in. I just take them out there, send them out there, and then when I'm done, they go back in and sit on the charger.
Yep.
So it's great if you can't wire for outdoor.
Yeah. Does
it do as good as an outdoor solution? No, but like a permanent outdoor solution. But if you can't do it, they're great. Should say that. You do need to make sure that you have, if you're taking them outside of your home, but around a pool, you got to have Wi-Fi around those spaces. Otherwise, they become Bluetooth speakers.
That is correct. Yep, absolutely.
So, Dan,
yes.
There's one more that I completely forgot about, and I think you completely forgot about it because we don't sell them that Sonos makes. There's actually another product lineup that we forgot about.
The Symfonisk?
Yes. Symfonisk. It comes from the land of Swedish meatballs.
That is
at
correct.
IKEA.
I was going to say the place that hates your thumbs.
But honestly, like because we don't sell, I mean, you can only get this stuff at IKEA. They have a bookshelf speaker, a table lamp, a floor lamp, and a picture frame speaker.
They do.
Have you seen this thing?
I've seen them. Yeah. So at first I was skeptical, and I honestly, so somebody sent it to me on April Fool's Day, thinking that it was a joke, and then it turned out that the joke was on them because it was a real product. And we were looking at it going like, oh my goodness, this is crazy. I have heard one of them, I think it was the lamp, I want to say, that we listened to, and it was not terrible. It wasn't amazing. I'm not going to say anything, I'm not going to, oversell it or over talk about it or anything like that. But it was pretty cool, to be honest, because the whole concept there was really leading with design, right? And so they wanted to make sure that they had an option for a well-designed, very clean space. But you are starting to see a lot more products do this. And Samsung's Frame TV is a classic concept, right? I want a television. I also want art. It's like this marriage of two otherwise disconnected product lines or ideas or kinds. And so to be able to take that concept and put it in the music space is what they've done. And it's really, honestly, I wish we had access to them because I would probably sell a lot of them. There's a lot of spaces where you could say, yeah, I can use a picture here. I could very easily put, a couple lamps in this room and, and to be able to double that up and get a little bit of background music and some sound in there, I think makes a lot of sense to a lot of folks. So definitely it's an exclusive, I think, to IKEA, if I remember correctly. I don't know if you can, I don't think you can order them or something like that. But if you happen to live around where one of those Swedish meatball places is, definitely worth the drive. Yeah.
That's the only thing that hasn't come to Nashville yet.
Oh man, it's coming. I'm sure it's coming.
It was.
Everybody else is. Yeah.
We can get into that. It was coming. They cut back a few years ago, but I'm sure they'll come here at some point. Yeah. The thing that blows me away, I'm just looking at it here. I don't mean to look away from the camera so much, but like the price points on these things, they're like $140, like the price of the Roam.
Right.
But the picture frame is pretty sweet. If you haven't seen it, look it up. It's $260. I mean, obviously at these price points, and if you haven't understood what we've said this entire time, you really do get what you pay for when it comes to sound. But I mean, if I'm in an apartment or an 80 square foot apartment like they have in IKEA stores, and I need music in that small space, it's going to sound pretty good, I think.
Yeah, I think, again, going back to that concept, it's part of a whole ecosystem, right? So if I'm thinking about this, saying, I want to have maybe a pair of Play 5s in a larger kitchen area or something along those lines, and I want to have some music in a hallway that's off the kitchen, I don't have a problem saying, yeah, let's go ahead and put a couple of those picture frames up, and let's let that music kind of flow through the house. There's some other cool things that you can do with the Sonos system because of its versatility. I'm reminded of a job we did a few months ago. So very cool client. He's a really big classic rock and roll guy. And not only does he like classic rock and roll, but he especially loves like boogie woogie, style rock and roll. Okay. And Great Balls of Fire is this guy's favorite song. I kid you not. So we get to talking and we start to realize like he's bought this baby grand player piano because he can't play a lick. Okay. And so for those that don't know, and we've said it before, I'm a piano player. So like for me, you put some ivories in front of me, I'm going to play the song. I'm going to have a great time. Well, he can't do that. So he gets this player, and the player has this function built into it where it pairs to a set of speakers. So the piano plays the piano part, but then the actual recording of the song plays through the speakers. Well, the speaker quality was not very great. And so we were able to get with a Sonos port and with a couple of Sonos Moves, believe it or not, we did Sonos Moves. we put 2 of those on either side of the piano, and we were able to sync the player going into the port. The port went wirelessly to the speakers. We were able to get the sound through that system. So it sounded like a live band. It was just incredible.
That's awesome. I did one of those pianos too, but not. It was just a player piano, yep. But not that type of experience. That's actually awesome.
It was pretty incredible. We had to set the delay times, so just for future, technical folks out there, like, you have to make sure that the delay is correct, because there is one introduced whenever you do that. But we were able to delay the keys using, I think it was called QRS system, I think is the name of the player piano software. Mm-hmm. But there was a delay that we were able to set, and I got it to, I want to say, 200 milliseconds or 2000 milliseconds or whatever it was. And it was enough to be able to get that lined up. And man, it was incredible. To be honest, it was pretty awesome. So, all right. Any other honorable mentions or things that we need to toss in there regarding Sonos Land?
No, not really. I mean, I know we talked about. Let's see, we could talk about. Did we talk about the Ray and the Beam a little? I know we mentioned them.
Yeah, some smaller soundbars. They're not 5.1. Probably good to say if you want Sonos integrated to your sound, but don't want to go all the way down to the ARC. Definitely a good call out. Thank you for saying so.
Yep. And the Ray does not have HDMI. It's optical, so it's great for like gaming setups and sitting at a desk or something like that. So don't buy that in your living room and think it's gonna be like the ARC.
Yep. Definitely not. But it's a cool piece. Again, you said it before, for what it is, right? And and I think that's really kind of the whole ethos behind Sonos, is that for what it is, it's pretty awesome.
Yep. And I think the other honorable mention is networking. It is a Wi-Fi heavy device as you add more zones.
1,000%.
So you do want to make sure that your network is going to be able to handle the 32 zones that you're going to put around your house after you listen to this episode, because you love Sonos so much.
Oh man, true story for 32 zones, right?
Yep.
Oh, that's awesome.
I have 14 in my house, and I don't have 14 rooms, so I'm ridiculous. I think the most I've ever done is like 20. I think 20 zones.
Yeah, I think I've topped out around like 16 or 17 or something like that. It
was all Sonos amps, which was kind of cool. But yeah.
Well, and there's pros and cons to those strategies, but again, and I guess the last thing I should say is it's not a dealer-based product. And so it is a do-it-yourself style product. And I think, we would probably put it into that category of prosumer, right? It's not really all the way into the professional, world. And so it does kind of bridge that gap, coming full circle. It's, just that it's just that one step up from what you're going to find at most retailers. And so if you're looking for a good option, this is the way to go. So without further ado, thank you very much for listening to the episode today. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Share with your friends, and give us some feedback. Let us know how we're doing. We'd love to hear from you. But we'll see you on the next episode.
Yep. Happy New Year, everybody.